That's something. Let's just start let's do a roll call first. Jim,
Present.
Steve,
Present.
and I'm also present and accounted for. So let's all stand and the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Well, welcome everyone out there in radio and TV land, and welcome to the Peter channel. Oh, and let's get right into it. Let's go with previous meetings.
One set of minutes.
Minutes, okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to approve the May 13th, 2025 meeting minutes for the Water and Sewer Commission.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I just want to point out and appreciate Brooke. The minutes come very well. We very much appreciate the work you do on those. Thank you. Yep. And you're gonna deal with us. All right, let's go with old business. We'll write down there the 225 South Worcester Street project.
So these were plans that you guys had already voted on and approved, but we didn't have hard copies, so
Okay.
there's two here for signatures. You can
Okay.
do them now or at the end of the meeting.
Okay, we'll do them at the end of the meeting. We'll get to it.
Yes,
That
yes,
sound good?
signatures.
Signs, there's the minutes.
Oh, okay. Going forward. Almost July already. Yeesh. Thanks, Jim. Let's go to 10 West Main Street project.
Yeah, so we had already had a discussion on this prior. There were some last minute changes to the bedroom count. It's indicated as of right now, they're gonna show it as 14 one-bedrooms and 3 two-bedroom units. They do have a few items that they still have to work on with the historical commission, so changes may still be coming.
They're doing the commercial underneath as we spoke of.
That's what it's proposed as, and depending on what they get from
They're still
pushback,
gonna go, what, 2 floors up?
multi-level. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll definitely get a confirmation on whatever the final design is from them, but so far that's where they're looking.
Okay, great. Great. 2318 Bay Street, project presentation. We have those people here for that. Okay, great. If you could just, speak clearly and, so we just get your name and everything like that. So, for the record. Appreciate it.
Do you want me to set up the easel, or how do you want me to do this?
Yeah, if that's convenient for you, sure.
I'll get one of those. Instead of a short one.
That's not in the budget.
You're right, it's not.
There you go.
Oh, nice.
Copies
Thanks.
for you as well. This is just, additional boss.
Appreciate that.
All
You
right.
guys want these open? They can get a closer view.
So, good evening. I'm Jamie from Zenith Consulting Engineers. 2318 Bay Street is in front of you
Thank you.
tonight.
Yeah.
We're proposing sewer and water connection, in the road. The sewer, well, the water obviously comes from nothing. The sewer, in our case here, we're looking to propose to tie into the 2-inch low pressure main that's in the road and go down to the lift station, in which the lift station lifts it up across into Taunton. Met with your staff on site a couple weeks ago. And what we did was we kind of came up with a game plan that we wanted to present to the commission. I think the biggest concern out here with the 2-inch is that it handles residences,
Right.
a number of them.
That's correct.
And overburdening a 2-inch line could be catastrophic if it's done, because it could back up into homes and propose, it could have issues. So what we came up with was, setting up a pump chamber that's large enough to handle more than the 24-hour flow of the site, and then pump it in off-peak hours from 1 AM to 5 AM.
So a holding tank.
Exactly.
When you're.
Correct. So in our proposal, where we're proposing an 8,000 gallon tank with duplex pumps. They're 2 horsepower and oil filled. They have 1¼ inch discharge, and they will then expand to 1.5 inch discharge, which will then connect to the low pressure force main in the street, which is 2 inch. The operating volumes, we're keeping 24 inches of water in the tank at all times, which is 2 inches taller than the pumps, which ensure that they're kept cool. Our function elevations go from 24 to 29 inches, which is when it would trigger the panel that, hey, we could pump. And then from 29 to 80 is, the 80 is where the alarm would go on saying, hey, listen, we've reached your 24-hour capacity. And we still have storage beyond that, which is fantastic. We actually have about 96 inches, 94 inches of storage in the tank altogether. So that being said, this is gonna require a customized panel. Customized panel would be placed outside in a waterproof container. It would, we wrote down some specifications on it. It would have to be programmable, to allow running from 1 AM to 5 AM. It would set so the pumps would alternate, and it would also, we're looking for it to have telemetry so that it can alert the property owner or manager when there's a failure or an issue, an alarm event. And then the box itself that contains the panel would have to be weather tight. All of that, we've got redundant check valves, check valve here and check valve with anti-siphon valve here to avoid any issue. Because our biggest concern on our end is the pump gets all the liquid pulled out of the tank and then the pump burns up from running from 1 to 5 AM and nothing to pump out. Besides that, the flows, the pump itself is projected to operate around 36 gallons a minute. So that's well within range for a 2 inch low pressure line. We're pushing it to 1.5 inches, which isn't gonna have a problem with it. So the 2 inch and that's about it for the sewer. We do have a grease trap proposed prior to the tank and a manhole, which is also on the plan on the previous sheet.
That grease trap will empty into the sewer?
After you go through the grease trap, it'll go in. So the fog will get separated out prior to entering into the function. And the grease trap will have to be serviced. So
Is that one trap covering both buildings? Because I know there was an
No.
undetermined use for the side building.
no,
Or-
so this is just for this building.
Okay.
If let's say that it is a use that requires a grease trap, they'll have their own. Yeah, Taunton requires it.
Mhm.
So, and then as far as water is concerned, we did some excavations with the water department that found the end of the line actually is about here. So we're looking to pick up that line and, let me make sure I'm saying that correctly. No, I'm not saying that correctly. Because there's a hydrant over here that we're gonna
That's where
relocate.
it needs, yeah.
Yeah. We found the line here. We're gonna tie into the line. We're gonna come up and run a new service or main on our site. We're looking for an 8 inch so that we can provide future fire protection for over on the side and also have our service taps off of it for this building and whatever buildings we do on this site.
So we don't know what's going on the other thing. We don't know what.
Right now, we're looking at food style establishment.
So are we gonna have, you're gonna have capacity in this proposed chamber?
Yes,
Is it gonna empty to that?
it is. So the
Because you got 24 hours, you said.
for everything, including.
For everything, including
on
that?
The other side and then some.
Mhm.
So, and we gave the calculations to the water and sewer department in a spreadsheet. And what we did was, basically Title V bases all flows based off of seats. But they also say if you don't meet the minimum of a certain, like 1,000 gallons a day, then you should use 1,000 gallons a day. What we did was we used the safe numbers that Title V provides. When we were at like 600 gallons a day, we used 1,000 in our calculations. So our number should be really safe.
So this chamber system is new to us, right?
Yeah, it's something that's, I've heard about and I've heard good things and bad things about it.
Do we know of any other places that have actually implemented that?
In town, we don't have anything like that.
Not in Norton, but anywhere.
I'm just more worried about the residents and the pump system that they have. That doesn't compromise that, in the future.
What is the flow?
Without knowing, serving the 2-inch line now?
There are 7 homes that have the ability to connect. I believe only 2 or 3 are actually connected right now. There's a vacant parcel across the street from this, that has the ability to connect also, and that's actually probably one of the larger parcels that's remaining in this area.
And I imagine the grinder pumps that are pumping into the.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 2-inch line should be for that flow, but the existing.
It was designed for residential homes. There was an IMA that was in place many years ago. It actually was set to expire, I believe, in 2026. We worked with Taunton's legal division, ended up getting, language changed to allow this facility to go in, again, a year short or so of the time frame. And the limitations are basically this was designed for residential use, so we want to make sure, 100% certain that it can handle the residential and the commercial flows that are now being added to it. So I know I had conversations with our engineer, Steve. He was willing to take a look at this to verify everything that was presented, because it is something that, we are not familiar with. Just don't want.
Not that it makes you feel good, but I did this in
Sure.
design before, a similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not, it's a good solution to a similar problem.
Yeah, and I think it's honestly, I think it's super safe, like you said, for this 2-inch line, because if the line can handle 40 gallons a minute, it's gonna take care of a single family house
Absolutely.
in 10 minutes, 5 minutes. And so the 7 houses that it's proposed, and even if you develop a couple of houses across the street, still ample capacity, but it doesn't hurt us to do this.
Mhm.
So, and the other thing that we proposed was giving, your staff access to the control panel so that they can go in and check, make sure that no one's played with the timing, or, if we need to adjust it, we're amenable to that. If we find that maybe we gotta move it to 1:30. But we believe that it's gonna probably be 45 minutes if the flows are what we think they're gonna be. They could be up to an hour and a half, if they're larger.
At 1 in the morning kind of thing.
Yeah,
we-
exactly.
Basically, every day at 1 in the morning, it would dump from here into the system.
It would
for an
start
hour.
pumping at like 36 gallons a minute, and that would go into that lift station. The lift station would then pump it up and push it back to its pump.
Do we need any input from Steve on this, or has he seen this?
It definitely isn't gonna hurt to have input from him. I know when I was speaking with our lead sewer tech, Bruno, he was aware of systems like this. I don't think he actually physically had any operations with them in his previous location where he was employed, but definitely felt it would be worth, having somebody with prior knowledge just take a once over.
Probably not a bad idea, I think.
Frank, is it 2-inch all the way to the station? I know we had this discussion before. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yep,
turn it up,
yep,
guys.
yep.
Sorry, Steve.
Hi, Steve. It goes, at the
Hey.
bridge, it goes from 2 to 3. And there's a short section from a 3-inch up over the bridge, down and into the lift station, into a manhole next to the lift station. But the majority of it, I would say 700 feet of it or so is 2-inch.
Okay. And I think we talked about that before, Frank, and you guys have as-built drawings of this, so. Yeah, if you want us to take a look at it, I mean, what he's talking about makes sense. There's several ways to do it. That is certainly one way. To address it and to mitigate the concerns of the homes. Making sure that it's not gonna be an issue for them to be able to turn on and pump into the system. But we can take a look at it.
Yeah, I'd be more comfortable with that. Yeah.
So you want us to
No,
enter into
it's new.
contract with them?
Okay. I'm sorry, Steve?
So so we've been entering into contract with the entities.
Like a peer review?
No.
Typically, a peer review would be a separate contract between Weston and Sampson and the builder or the contractor, and we'd actually stay out of it. Depending on how involved they need to get, it's going to depend on what the cost is. I mean, other than that, it could possibly be handled under our general services contract, but it's definitely not something we've done previously. It's always been peer reviews.
Yeah, I know we have
paid
done the
separately.
peer reviews, that's what I would recommend that.
Yeah, since we've never done it in town before, it'd be a good idea to do that, I think.
Yeah.
I think.
So, in regards to the water,
Mhm.
that's That's where the end of the line is, with the valid height, sorry?
And currently it's in the middle of the proposed layout of the driveway.
Okay,
That's right.
So it's gonna get relocated here, and then, a T-assembly, gate valves, and they'll kick in to stay out of the state road easement.
Sure.
Into their driveway.
Okay.
And run down, new hydrant will be installed at the end with an isolation valve.
Yep.
And I believe it's two-inch lines you're running off.
so what do you have, a stub there for the future, okay, yep, smart. And that's the water coming, what size is the water coming in, 2 inch?
We're
2
proposing
inch, 2 inch, I'm sorry. All right. On the water.
Yeah, I mean, the water's the
Water's
simplest
easy,
solution
yeah.
down here. Again, I wish it was a bigger main, but again, when it was put in, it was,
What do we have over here?
yeah, it connects to a 12 down at King Philip.
Is there, like fire suppression at all, or is it just the
In that building, there's no fire suppression,
no fire? suppression?
and with the canopies, it's a different kind of fire suppression, it's more like a foam.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
PFAS free, right?
I would imagine.
Just kidding, I know it has to be,
It's a talcum powder.
I know it is, yeah, we have it.
That's outside of my knowledge.
Mhm. Yeah, for the unknown use of the other building, I know you mentioned earlier, fire suppression.
Mhm.
You'd have to do an actual hydrant flow test to determine exactly what you can get out of that, because there will be some loss based on the distance and the size limitations.
Yeah, yeah, there'll be a fire suppression engineer and
Yep.
there'll be an.
It's involved.
Yeah,
Just want to make
100%.
sure
Oh, thank you.
it's on the table, so everybody's aware.
So, what do you, other than peer review, how do we proceed?
I mean, I think the water can be approved as shown.
All right,
Sewer pending review from Weston and Sampson. That way, I mean, I don't know if you guys are willing to go two separate parts for construction. I know you guys have been behind the eight ball with this.
Yeah, I mean, for the sake of time, if you guys, approve the water, that'd be great. And
Mhm.
as far as the sewer, if you guys approve it pending their approval, then we can get with them right
Yeah.
away, and once they review it, I think it'll be really uncomplicated to review. I don't think it'll be a big process for them.
Okay.
And then as soon as they give the okay, then we can jump right into
Great.
installing it, because, as you know, if you drive by the site, it's paved up to where.
Yeah, I see that, yeah,
We'd like that, to see this as quickly as possible
all right,
with all the paperwork that we do.
Right,
online,
right.
so it's just kind of-
Yeah, I mean, there's still some paperwork to be done. These are two brand new accounts that'll have to be set up, and, there's obviously there's fees for connections and stuff. We can discuss once it moves to the next step.
all right,
Can we go with that?
you good? Awesome.
All right, so we have a vote, all right?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go ahead and make a motion then to approve the plans for water for 2318 Bay Street and also for sewer pending the peer review from Weston and Sampson.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
All right, thank you.
okay, thank you, thanks, guys,
Thanks, guys.
appreciate it, thank you,
Hey, thanks.
yeah, you can read it. Nice, they're so busy, you can't,
I'm guessing I'll reach out to Frank and Frank can provide me with.
Yeah, I can send you over the information.
Yeah. I'll reach out tomorrow.
Sure, no worries.
Thank you.
thanks, guys, thank you. All right, Elm Street updates. This
That's all, Steve.
is all Steve? No, he's gone, he's already, he's gone, he's out of here. Oh, and he's got his glasses on too, so that's scary.
Out of here.
How's that?
All
Elm
right,
Street
Ken.
update, they rejected us.
What,
You forgot already?
again?
So we met with the funding agency and with Mike Units and Paul. I don't really know where it's going from here. They'd like to try and move forward with the developer making up the difference. Basically the town not having to spend any money. So if it's the grant money and then the developer pays for the rest, that's great, but they gotta get back with the developer because the developer wants, they're back on that TIF where they'll front the money, but they want to get a break on their taxes. They want to recover it, through taxes over time. So I don't know where they're gonna go with it. That's up to Mike and Paul. Mike's only here for a couple more days, so Mike's not gonna do anything with it. So I don't know how far it's gonna go.
We'll go back to town meeting again, right?
What does go back?
Wanna do there?
This would be back at town meeting.
A TIF would, a TIF
TIF
would
would?
have to go back, I believe. I believe that requires time vote.
Yeah, I don't know anything that has, if anything that has to go back to town meeting would get approved, because it didn't, it was less I don't think people were really concerned about how much money they were spending, because it wasn't a lot of money. It was, they didn't want the 150 units. So I don't think that's gonna change.
They want a park.
That's my opinion.
That was one option.
How come you're not hearing that?
All right, well,
Yeah.
So when's the last time you did they have the discussion right after the meeting? I mean, right now, you haven't heard anything, Frank, right?
No,
From
I haven't.
anybody?
No.
I mean, with Mike leaving, I don't know, who's carrying the ball to the next step.
It's gotta be a new question with you at this point.
I think the bigger
If you
thing,
bring anything related to an Elm Street sewer to town meeting, then people are gonna be showing up to this building with pitchforks,
yeah,
you know?
Yeah, I think Steve hit it right on the head. They didn't like what was proposed. It had nothing to do with, you know, the monies that were involved, you know.
because the
When it all
alternative,
came down to it.
the alternative method was
Right, we provided them what they had asked
what they
for.
wanted, and they
Yep.
still turned it down.
If it was the same money,
6
for
times
the
a
dog
child.
park, they probably would have voted for it.
Never know.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think so. I mean, our bigger issue on that is still trying to figure out how we can recover the amendment. So I've, put forward our amendment again. And I know Frank's was trying to work with Mike Units on how the town might be able to pay us for the overruns on our contract on that, which we've been carrying for over a year. So I'd like to get that figured out.
Mhm.
It's on Frank's to-do list.
It's at the top. That list is long.
How much can it be?
Okay?
Thanks, Steve.
Yep.
All right, let's, move right on to 360 South Vista. Oh, he's got a fancy, oh, look at this one. This one's even more fancy.
I want that one then.
It's a lot of noise, though. Frank, I think I have one of those I can give you.
Great. Gonna have to expand the office here with all the extra toys. That's a nice one though.
Hopefully these plans are readable also.
Okay.
So Carlos Sculte with Civil Environmental Consultants, we're the civil engineers on the project. This has been through planning board, conservation review already, it's getting close to construction, the contractor is ready to go. What we have are 3 separate buildings on this property in South Worcester Street.
It's just,
There's
what we've seen before.
kind of 2 medium-sized buildings, about 4,000 square feet, and 1 smaller, about 1,200 square feet. We have it's kind of tough because it splits up on 2 separate sheets.
Oh, gotcha.
So we're connecting to the 10-inch, it's kind of like this, right? So we're connecting to the 10-inch main in the street. We have an 8-inch connection coming off, a new hydrant in the back, and then just 1-inch domestic services to each one of the buildings. It's just domestic service, no fire suppression for the individual buildings. They're all small enough that they don't need it. We worked with the fire department. They wanted the hydrant, and also working with the water staff. They had us add a couple notes near the street, just confirming there was some ambiguity, I guess, on the material on the water main in the street. So we just added some notes that we needed to confirm the details on what that connection looks like based on what the test bits show when it's time to connect. So we'll customize that detail at that time.
What is that 10-inch made out of?
That's, according to the records, it's oversized AC. It's the extra thick wall AC, so it comes out with a 12-inch
Yeah.
ductile iron
Yeah.
diameter. So we're gonna confirm with existing gates in the street if we could facilitate a minor shutdown to allow them to cut in an actual T assembly and gate valves
Valve.
there. looking at the layout that's there and confirming it after walking the street, more than likely a hot tap is gonna be required there,
Okay.
because it's gonna put the commercial building down the street out of water,
Oh,
because valves aren't spaced appropriately there. So we did upgrades on the other side of the old Hall Smith Cisco, and just up the street from there, we connected, we ran new ductile, so. You know, if you put that building out of water, they have to bring in, separate vehicles and stuff with actually pumpers, because they have chiller systems on the roof.
Oh, okay.
So it's a big deal to put that facility out of water, and we work with them as often as possible. to
Temp lines,
avoid any
temp lines
impacts.
not an option. I know that's a lot, but I
Yeah,
mean.
they take a significant amount
Okay,
of volume
okay,
there for the
right,
chillers.
right.
So I think what will happen, that's why we had the language put in there, we wanted to wait and confirm exactly what's there, but
Okay.
Stainless steel, hot tap assembly with a gate valve, it's probably the.
Yeah, that
the best
main
op-
is probably,
it's-
yeah.
Yeah, it's very thick.
This is gonna be a low intensity user, it's just a contractor's yard.
Yeah, so just 1 inch service is all you require, huh?
Yep,
That's all?
domestic, they're not really doing any sort of water production or anything crazy like that, it's basically for a couple bathrooms and.
So these are commercial, type,
Yeah, it's
commercial
a
type?
contractor's yard, it's kind of dry storage,
Oh,
and
okay,
they have
okay.
their equipment and whatnot,
Gotcha.
inside the buildings, there's a small office in the front. Not really too much for retail service, so it's just for the contractor operations.
Yep.
And as it relates to sewer, we're on septic in the rear, it's been through Board of Health as well for the sewer, review as well.
Yeah, they're not connected, so you have your own system.
So we're also
Okay.
septic on site, so not tying into any sort of town sewer system, so just water. And the reason we're in front of you today is because this one kind of main coming off the line, but the hydrant and the taps coming off separately is viewed as a main as opposed to just services. We had contemplated having individual services come off the main in the street.
Mhm.
Ultimately, just having one connection, I think is less interruptions, less work on the existing main.
I'm sure the fire department would like to see that.
They enjoy having the
Behind,
hydrant
sure, of
on that
course.
side of the road.
That's smart for
Mhm.
all parties.
It didn't make sense here to require a loop.
Yeah.
Just because they're tiny commercial buildings, there's no fire suppression or anything needed there, so
Okay.
similar to what we've done in the past with, allowances on variances for the loop. It's designed the same way.
You could flush at the fire hydrant if you had to anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the end of the line there.
That's pretty simple.
It works out well, a decent amount of area to put the water if necessary to pull it in there.
Okay.
Pretty straightforward. I did
Yeah.
email you guys about this, I think, a
Yeah.
while back before we had a presentation. That's why it probably sounds very familiar.
Yep.
Looks good. So we're happy, all
All
right?
right, yeah,
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the water plans for 360 South Worcester Street, excuse me.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Got two full size, I'm gonna add it to the stack.
Please.
Thank you.
thank you, appreciate it, thanks for the demo.
Thank you.
Good presentation. Appreciate it. And just for next steps, for the contractor to pick up any sort of signed plans, do you know kind of what the timeline of the process would be for them to check off the box here with the water department, or are we all set basically?
No, you're basically all set. You got a contractor, or you guys would come in, fill out the paperwork here at the office so we can get the actual setup in the computer, because there's not an existing lot that's there.
Yep.
Pay the connection fee, and then you're ready to go, and we'll be out there and do inspections and whenever you guys are set up to go.
Awesome. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
South Worcester Street. We have an upgrade discussion?
We do. So, we began work out there, or I should say the contractor began work out there on the 19th. They were doing some test, digging, to verify. We actually had some conflicting reports from a previous engineering firm on what the ductile iron main connected to in 2008. Oddly enough, the engineering plans that we had were incorrect, so it's a good thing that we did the test bits. Ultimately, a decision was made to make a connection to the larger main, the 12-inch ductile from 2008, instead of the smaller main that was installed mid-80s. So there is going to be a change order for that. It just made more sense to do that. Went out there. No, that wasn't okay.
That stripe.
Retract that. Yeah. It's been a week.
We'll erase that, change.
No, it'll come up later. We'll need one, sure. They were back up there today to run the pipe and actually run into the main that was there.
We ran right into it.
Pulled the cap off the end of it, so
Ooh,
we
really?
did a little flushing down there afterwards.
We didn't have to.
No, unfortunately we did. So oddly enough, we've always had a flow restriction down there.
Yeah.
We actually found that one of the gates that was down there that we knew was to be a backwards valve only operates about 3/4 of the way open or 3/4 of the way closed.
Wow, nice find.
So that's definitely the reason why we're down there, because there's some unknowns and some concerns that we've had.
Good find.
We had to go further back, so the shutdown included Dean Street intersection at South Worcester all the way down to Parker Court, so it's a
Wow.
large
Yeah.
stretch.
Yeah.
Because there are no other known valves that are there, we went to the ones that we knew operated.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, we was last year that we excavated this gate valve that we had to operate today and actually had to replace the operating nut because it was rotted off. And there was unknown knowledge of what this actually tied into. It made sense where it was, but being that it was rotted off and in such poor condition, we opted just to replace the nut. And thankfully, it worked in our favor because that was necessary today to avoid a majority of
Right.
Harvey Street and everything being shut
Wow.
out. So thankfully, one thing worked in our favor with this, even though it was an unforeseen event, unscheduled shutdown. I don't think there's gonna be any major problems down there, but they still have to run through some areas that have got some serious rock and ledge, so. Each shutdown that's required there will be the same elongated piece, unfortunately, this we'll have to deal with, so. But, I think they got in 3 or 4, maybe 5 lengths of pipe. They said they actually moved pretty good today after the unfortunate happening that happened this morning. So we'll take a win when we can get it. Flushing actually was relatively simple. We had a high point, at Parker Court. There was some air. And, we were slow to get out the Norton alerts because we are limited with staff here. But notifications did go out.
I got it.
When it went out, when the water was off, it was probably half an hour later or so. When the water came back on, it was probably about the same. So we're using our connections at Town Hall to facilitate the notices.
Okay.
And while we're on that, there have been notices that were sent out that were incorrect, notifying residents of the shutdown. Somehow it was changed in the language and there's a notification going around that South Washington Street
Oh, yeah,
will have a portion
Yeah.
shut off.
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
It's not in the header. The header is correct, but the actual.
Yeah.
So, again, we're working to get that corrected. It's just multiple channels to get once it's out there, get it corrected and redacted or refixed, so.
Yep.
We'll work with it. We'll go from there. We were very lucky to, get the police to approve the road closure. That's made things a lot better.
Yeah,
And we provided some updated closure maps, based on just thoughts that are there of what's gonna work out when they're in certain areas.
Mhm.
To police and fire, just so that they're aware in case they have to change their responses to certain areas.
Good.
So far, so good. Just starting off.
Thanks, Frank. Zero Newcomb Street.
Alright, so we actually have a couple sets of plans on this. This is a large 40B project. Last I heard, it was held up in some of the other boards. There was a lot of pushback.
I was on the call for the zoning board of appeals.
Okay,
They, voted the project, it was a safe harbor, meaning it's over 10% for, and they basically denied the project.
just flat out not asking for amendments or changes. Okay,
No, they didn't, they basically voted the project down.
wow, okay.
So this is dead in the water?
It appears that way. I
Dead
mean,
in the water, except the developer owns the property, so he, it's
Yeah, one
zoned
top
right,
section.
it's basically zoned. He could build 5 houses there. However, he could probably also build 10 duplexes there. And potentially he could probably do something more, something substantially less than.
Yeah, this was,
You gotta
I
do
think
some
this was
infrastructure.
the maximum thing that he could fit on there after having discussions with what they came back with. This is, we've talked with him, John and I had conversations with him going way back. He has secured an easement to property that connects his land out to Newland Street. So he does have everything required to make the water main loop from the 2 streets, which was planned
to tie into the two.
and to tie into the sewer out on Newland Street. Depending on what's presented, if we were to move forward with what was presented here, that would be another project that would need a peer review because we'd want to verify that, you know, the additional flows that are here aren't going to have any impact on the small sewer mains that are out there and the sewer station.
in that case, probably it was gonna make an impact on the force main.
Oh, 100%.
What about the infrastructure of the water there? Does that need any kind of upgrade?
The water on both streets have age to them and they're not a favorable material, but they do handle significant flows. So you have an oversized 10-inch AC on those areas. So it would actually work pretty well to have a loop in that area there. I don't think they have any issues with fire suppression or anything like that. But the sewer was, again, our concern based on the limited size that's out on Newland Street running to the Norwood Pump Station. So this will be something, I'm sure it's not dead in, this project may be dead in the water, but I'm sure we'll see other proposals come in.
Is this located right across from you? Right across from where you live?
In the intersection of Newland, Newcomb, the corner, it's kind of like,
Near Red Mill Road?
opposite Red Mill
Yeah.
Road, but it's, I don't know, 200 feet maybe on the left-hand side, there's like a driveway, right away.
Do you know where Pine Needle Drive is?
Opposite the apartment,
Newcomb, okay.
opposite the
Oh,
apartment.
yes,
yeah.
yes, no, I know, I went with those, my friend used to live there, yeah, I know what you're talking about, yeah.
It's just they have a long egress into the property.
Okay.
In fact, it's surprising, they only have one way into this big development, and it's surprising that it was, even with past that litmus test.
Yeah, it had changed multiple times over the past year, based on some criteria that you could have, triple density or something like that. It was quite a bit that went involved designing it the way it was maxed out. The only thing that was really concerning is that there was also gonna be a community building basically in the center, and in one of the meetings that we had, one of the things that was thrown out is actually to have like a convenience store or a laundromat. So those numbers, could be anywhere with wastewater flow, so. Definitely had some ideas for the property, and I would expect to see them come back and not just sit on that land.
Okay,
So
Well- we'll wait and see.
if you're interested and have some time, do some reading, the plans are there, you can take them.
All right, in the meantime, superintendent's update, you busy.
Oh, yeah. This is only half the stuff that I remembered to write down. So, at town meeting, you guys are probably well aware that the recodification article was shot down. It's unfortunate that it was proposed all encompassing. There was language that was in there that, the town had worked with to address the new ADUs. So it's max density. You can create a apartment over your existing garage, and that's considered now an ADU. It would be equal to what we call an EDU if it's a separate dwelling. The concern, even though it hasn't been specified yet, is that more than likely the ADUs will be considered and act just like a condo. So it may be created by one family at one point in time, but later on, language will be in place that it could actually be sold individually. So now you're gonna have multiple dwellings on one piece of property with multiple owners.
So, yeah,
So that gets into a problem with our regulations, where we stipulate that no resident can supply water to another person, another property, unless it's, an emergency situation.
Yep.
We've run into that, and we've actually asked residents to do that. If they, house next door has a service leak, it's not winter time, we can do a hose-to-hose connection.
Yep.
So people aren't, basically forced out of their home while the repairs are being made. But it wouldn't be under any permanent circumstance. So this gets into a situation where we were really hoping that the town would have had the language in place and we could have piggybacked on it and modified ours. Not knowing who's gonna take the lead with this, there's a possibility that we as a board and as a group might need to get together and amend our current rules and regulations, which is something that's probably long overdue anyway, to address what the options are for these type of properties now and in the future. So we've run into this a few times where an existing home has been changed to a duplex. Not a big deal if it's owned by the same person. Typically you see that with families.
We have that, situation coupled.
Yep.
coupled.
Yeah, and then at some point in time in the future, the original owner wants to sell and now it might be split, as a separate home on one side. The other person doesn't wanna have that person connected to them. So it runs into an issue with, do you require an HOA? Do you have a shared user agreement? I mean, you're talking about things that also, like the roof. It's a shared roof. If it fails, one person has the money to fix it, the other person doesn't. How do you manage that? So, what I've heard from other communities that they're running into the same situation. They've either required every connection to be separate and individual, which is gonna mean a ton of excavations in the road, for both water and sewer now, because you're gonna require each individual one to have its own separate feed from the corresponding main and its own isolation valve. Others have opted to move and allow a single feed on both the water and sewer to the main to limit the amount of construction and destruction that happens to the roadways. If a shared user agreement is in place between all parties involved, which is similar to what we have now in the condo associations. You'll have maybe a 2-inch main coming in, it'll branch off to a manifold on the private property. Each unit has its own shutoff and its own meter, but it's because it's an association, it's an HOA, so there's nothing in our current language that requires all of that to take place. I don't know what the limitations are as far as what we have for control over requiring that, because now you're talking about people getting into a legal process and having documents made. You're talking about addition to deeds, so that agreement is part of the deed. So if one person does sell, 10 years from now, they've lived in the house all their life, it doesn't slip through the cracks. Not to point out one particular area, but unfortunately this has happened on Fernandez Circle. Originally, there was a user agreement there. Probably 20, 30 years ago, it was dissolved. All those houses were sold off. I think there was one remaining person that was down there. It's a privately owned street, privately maintained. The water main broke after there was fire suppression run down in the area. Nobody knew who was going to pay for it, who was going to fix it. That ultimately one person ended up paying to have the contractor come in and fix it. And I think they all patched it out on their own, but that's the type of situations you don't want to get into. And I don't know if it really does fall on this board or if it falls back on the town. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention that it's coming.
I think we really need to look at our rules and regs and, we need to address that like sooner than later,
Mhm.
because,
Yeah, my sister's building
ADU.
data in, Watertown.
I mean, it's very common and we can understand the housing crisis, the way it works. But
We just had that somewhat of a similar situation, and we had two properties
Yep.
with one line going back.
Yep.
And we made them have two different.
Yeah.
different
So
things there.
there's things that you can do for existing properties, and that's what we've worked with over the years. As long as you can isolate one from the other and not affect both by a shutdown, that's something we've been amenable to in the past. A lot of it actually took place and was required because of the Norton Grove. Those were summer cottages that were converted to full-time units. There was 3 and 4 houses connected off of one service because it was done on a Saturday. And, you don't have plans on anything. When you respond because, John Smith needs to water shut off so he can get a new toilet installed, and you shut off one line, you get 5 people coming out, what's going on? You could be 2 streets over. And it's unfortunate that's the way it works, but with a small town, having, lakefront communities like that, it's not uncommon. When you find things like that is when you want to address it. But again, how can you, enforce it for something that's been existing? It only makes sense to move forward, and when.
I think that
changes-
if you have something, you have an ADU, EDU, whatever,
Mhm.
and they're running off, the current water service, maybe there should be some sort of requirement if sold. It needs to be retrofitted then. It needs
Yeah.
to be, whether it be on the property with that one service, but you're still gonna run into an issue because, you have that.
You may not have an easement to allow, say you have 3
There's
houses.
so many different
connected.
variables
Right.
that are gonna be there, but I think, that's something we can look at.
Definitely something we can look at. I would imagine that we should probably get the engineers involved. I'm sure they've dealt with that in other areas, and obviously we can use Steve's expertise as well. to come up with some language, just to clean up what we currently have.
Yep.
Maybe we don't have to rewrite the book, but
Just protects everybody in the future, you know.
Yeah, you're right.
you know, just something that should be looked at now that that's pushing forward very, very fast. Try and get ahead of it before it becomes a major issue.
So since you just said that.
Yeah.
Everybody in Massachusetts doing,
Mhm.
somebody else must have
They must have.
rewritten their regulations to do this. I mean, something like MMA help us here,
Yeah.
or I
Yeah.
can't imagine we're gonna, I'd rather be the second one than the first one.
Right.
to do this.
Oh, it'd be nice to see what other people have, and you can just use them as a template, if not exactly word for word. You know, it definitely saves some time.
Maybe it's not something we're doing with water works to come up with, right?
I think you're talking about water and sewer, but there are other communities that I think it's just how you wanna handle it. Do you make them do it right away, or if there's opportunities, or give them options, form an HOA.
Are you a Mass Water, member?
I actually just became one.
So you
What
can,
did just,
you can ask, Mass Water Works, MWWA, Mass Water Works Association. They have, questions you can submit online and it goes out to everybody that's a member.
I mean, I would ask the question, and see what's out there.
Right. See what the majority are
A lot of the
doing.
water districts already have it, so.
You know, someone might chime in with something that might
Yeah,
work perfectly for us.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
big on cutting and pasting myself.
Sure, I have no problem with that either. You know, just
That's apples and
just
oranges.
trying to get away from always being the last to do
So I want to be
something.
the second,
Yeah.
you want to do it, that's right, and we don't want to be the last.
No, right, exactly.
All right, good.
Definitely something you guys will hear at some point in the future. Seasonal flushing, we did not, as you guys know, do a full flushing program. You know, we had limitations on water. And we were using the flow tests, you know, the fire hydrant flow tests and the fire pump test to our advantage. We continued to do that. We altered the sequence of the dead end flushing on this side of town, focusing on Harvey Street, Dean Street, moving up John Scott across to North Worcester and Richardson Avenue. Knock on wood, we did not have any exceedances the last THM and HA sample rounds, so very good. You know, minor changes seem to have done things a little bit differently. Can't say 100% that it was caused by the addition that we did to the flushing, the different changes and the longer run times, but it definitely must have helped. We were tracking some chlorine residuals. We didn't have anything different from what we'd seen in previous months, but obviously we'll take an improvement.
Good, yeah.
You know, so there's,
Every step forward helps.
I mean, that definitely gets us into a different position. We'll see how it goes, obviously, with the wonderful weather we've been having now. Water use has been extremely high. We also assisted Wheaton College with filling their Olympic-sized swimming pool. They were under a time restraint to have the repairs done. They had some cracks in the pool, and some upgrades they had to do. They actually had to de-water the area around the pool before taking the water out because they were worried it was going to erupt because of the high groundwater.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Wow.
So they did that. Equally as concerned after doing the repairs that they were gonna have the same issue. So, you know, we worked with them and got the majority of the water in the pool for them. They are finishing it now as we are entering the heat wave, but with tanker trucks coming in. So, you know, we do what we can to help out where we can, you know, and, you know, even in our limited state, you know, we were able to help them out. So
What's the gallons, the capacity of that pool?
that is about 470,000 gallons.
Yes, half.
Just a small one. So again, we'll continue doing some of the flushing of the dead ends, using the flow test to our advantage where we can. We've extended a little bit into some of the neighborhoods in the general area, and it's worked out pretty well. Only a few complaint calls while we were out. Mainly, we get complaints for changes in pressure. You know, people see a reduction in pressure when we're flushing in the area because it's unilateral,
Yeah.
and we're doing it during the day. So, you know, it's not too many dirty water calls, any major complaints like that. So
Good.
we'll take that.
Yeah,
And
That's great.
continue, if the weather works out and we have the water, you know, we'll continue to use the flushing to our advantages. We have some other fire pumps that are coming up. There'll be 3 on Leonard Street that are coming up pretty soon. I believe we have 1 or 2 set up on Mansfield Ave. So again, the outskirts of town, so it works out in our benefit to just continue the flushing after we had that volume that we couldn't achieve on our own. So,
Right, right.
so we had the, let's see,
Season flushing now on South Wilson Street.
South Worcester Street. So we already touched on that. And
Okay.
We'll deal with that as things move along. We actually have them using our area here as a laydown area,
Yeah.
which we did, for East Hodges Street, so it works out pretty well.
They could build a building for us, it'd be great.
That's coming.
Scratch my back.
Sanitary survey. We did pretty well on that. I mentioned that at our last meeting. Part of that was having the final security analysis for our cybersecurity. So, prior to John leaving, both he and I had meetings with a private firm that was working for the EPA, looking at cybersecurity, seeing what they could recommend for improvements. Individually, they've met with the town's IT department and our SCADA Tech OT department. There was some minor discrepancies between each of the answers, so that we're still working through some of the details on that. Where it's not a combined system, we expected there to be some differences in the answers, where one may have a different firewall than the other. It raised a few red flags with the security.
Okay.
So they've, although they agree,
Well, can't they do the cybersecurity separate from SCADA?
it
They're
is,
really-
so there's 2 separate parts to it. So the IT is our townwide
Yeah,
system
yeah.
here, that's everything linked
Yeah.
together, where we don't use that to access the SCADA computer or vice
Right,
versa.
right.
There's 2 separate firewalls, and everything
Yep.
is separate. The concern was that we do have a remote link if we have a concern that our SCADA tech can come in, but it's a authentication process
Right.
to allow him access remotely.
Yep.
But that's what triggers the concerns, is that, there is the potential for an external computer to connect into the SCADA system, which could obviously lead to problems. After we explained to him that we physically have to be on site, to allow this link to come into our system, to put in a certain authentication code that you get via phone.
Yeah.
It calmed the concerns slightly. Even though they agreed we were in great shape, they still provided us with a list of things that we can do to improve. There's always room for improvement.
But the cybersecurity stuff and the cameras and everything that projected is gonna be all separate. No, it's gonna be a third system, as it were.
You are correct.
IT, OT, yeah.
And then, visual.
Yeah.
So we have certain things in place that are antiquated that we're gonna look to do some upgrades on. They've provided us with links to some possible grants. Unfortunately, the town doesn't have a grant writer. So we're gonna be, doing what we can to submit, a few of these documents and see if,
We had an
we
engineering
can get
firm
through
that would do that.
we might have to reach out to them. And just see if we can get involved with the grant process. Maybe we can learn a little bit, seeing some of the templates go through.
Yeah.
And, kind of have a boilerplate that we can just pick from and see if we can modify some language.
Good.
Because there are a lot of grants out there. We did apply for one a while back for PFAS. We were denied, which, we'll just go again.
Sure.
There's plenty out
It'll
there.
be that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you turn away,
Oh,
Was it three, was it 3.5 million?
no, that's the other concern, is when you turn away monies like that it could leave,
Yeah.
a tarnished look on the town. So
I hope not.
we'll deal with that as
I hope
we
not.
move forward, and time will tell
Yeah.
on that. But yeah, all in all, they said that we're ahead compared to most other small water departments and sewer departments as far as what we have in place already. So like I said, there's upgrades that are recommended for both IT and OT,
Mhm.
and we'll work through that process.
Good.
Obviously at the end of the year, we're limited in what we can do.
Yeah.
As far as if we had to purchase different equipment or not. So obviously going into, FY26, that'll be one of the things that we start working on right off the bat. I don't remember if it was mentioned at a previous meeting, but we do have surplus equipment that was approved by the select board to go to auction. We use Municipal. It seems to be the common auction site. So we have a couple vehicles that were replaced. They're actually still out here. One of them we were actually taking parts off to fix two of the vehicles that we still have, you know, we were able to use a bumper and the body off of the other one. So those will be going up in the near future. Also gonna have some, connections, elbows, angles, gate boxes, gate valves, all the big stuff that was left over from the Mass
Fair Street
DOT
job.
project.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, all big stuff that we're not
Yeah, we
gonna,
did, we had,
never gonna use.
we had to pay for that.
And we had,
Yeah.
we were on the hook for it.
Yep, I remember
So
that.
the option was to scrap it or to take it. Yeah, no, we'll,
Yeah.
we'll take it and we'll put it out and see what we can get for it. So it's just, that's what's out here in the yard. We separated it to pallets. We're gonna more than likely put it out as small groups, just because, you know, somebody like another water department may be interested in it.
Yeah.
They're not gonna buy, you know, the entire lot. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So it will spend more time on it, individually package it up and put it up as however we can list it.
Is it just, fittings or is it you got pipe?
There is some pipe. We're only gonna keep a small portion of it just because it is very large. We have offered some of it to the highway department to use as, emergency installs for culvert failures.
Yep.
Because it is large size and does work. Sometimes the corrugated steel takes a little while to get. And the newer style box culverts and stuff, you know, even longer. So
Okay.
if it means getting the road open, you know, even temporarily, you know, we can work with them and get that in there.
Good idea.
All right, so. Future proposed projects, this kind of got forced on us, unfortunately. Week or so, maybe just over a week now. Not to indicate that it was any cause of Mansfield Electric, but Mansfield Electric, did a scheduled shutdown to work on the grid. So everybody was notified except for us, they forgot. And they notified the MFN because they had wastewater treatment facilities that were gonna be out of power for, I think it was from 12 to 5 AM. The shutdown affected our Great Woods pump station. And whatever took place during the shutdown or whatever, went on, oddly enough, actually tripped many of our breakers in our building to a neutral position. So not a full trip, like an overcurrent. Yeah, they went to the middle. It was just kind of strange. It was off for a little while. One of the breakers that actually tripped was the battery tender for the generator. By the time the levels got to a point where the radio called, because it was the middle of the night, generator couldn't start. So techs responded, realized it couldn't start, tried putting jump packs on it. It's a monster. You're not gonna get to start off with jump packs. You need batteries. So immediately called in tanker trucks because the wet well was gaining. It wasn't anywhere near a major concern, but knowing that it's the middle of the night and response times are gonna be a little bit longer, they took care of that. They ended up calling in South Shore Generator, advised them before they showed up that more than likely the batteries are junk, you know, or it has something to do with that. So they showed up, got batteries in it, got it to start. It backfired once, pumps came on, backfired again, and blew an oil seal. The oil seal that it let go was actually on the Sparktronic ignition drive. It's a part that you can't get. So the generator's 34 years old. We ran into this with Cobb Street, which was the reason why it was on my radar, and we replaced it with the project that we're, you know, just finishing up now. We have the generator techs coming out again this Friday to do a final assessment on it, take some parts off, see if it is just a seal that failed, and that's why the gear drive came loose, or if it actually is catastrophic and it wiped out the gear drive assembly on the front of the Cummins motor. Until we know the full prognosis, we have pump trucks on standby if we lose power there. Thankfully, knock on wood, Mansfield Electric is very good with power. We hardly ever lose it, but it just doesn't have a good feeling for anybody that's on call, knowing that that's what you have for options. So
Do you have any, emergency numbers over there?
I do now.
Okay.
The numbers that we had, you know, went to some old people who no longer there.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, when we spoke to the people from Mansfield Electric, they said, "Oh, we notified Chris." All right, well, we have 3 Chris's that work here. Of course, 2 of them are on vacation. The other one, we verified that he never got the call. So come to find out, they called Chris down at the Mansfield wastewater treatment plant.
Oh, that's what I said.
You know, so he was aware of it. And he didn't think anything of us either, because he had stations that were gonna be
That's
affected by it.
fantastic, yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
you know, it's unfortunate
So-
that as a customer, we weren't notified.
Going forward, I'm assuming,
We've been added to the
Okay.
contact list. Myself, the lead sewer tech, and the emergency on-call phone have all been added to it.
Okay.
You know, it'll probably never happen again, and it's probably just a weird coincidence that the generator wouldn't run under load where it's run, you know, week after week before. But now we're in a situation where we have to make some quick decisions. We are gonna pull our temporary generator and have it installed there, wired so it's on auto start. We have one quote right now that's in, it's gonna be about $6,800 per month to have it sitting there and in place. If we do a month to month, if we do a 3-month rental, we can get it down to about 45 to 48. More than likely, that's gonna be the one I'm jumping on, just so it buys us time,
Definitely
gets
that.
us
We're not
through.
gonna have a new generator in 3 months, so.
Exactly, so other decisions have to be made. The biggest thing that's sticking in my head now is the response that I got from Mansfield Electric when I was just questioning what went on. You know, if it was a surge, if something went awry from a normal shutdown. In the bottom of the email, it was electrical customers are responsible for their own suppression. So obviously I know it's just a, you know, hey, this is your problem, not mine. But ultimately, it is our problem. You know, it's a 34-year-old station, you know, line suppression, you know, phase control, anything like that was never thought of back then. And the old diesel generators, you know, that were converted to natural gas, they didn't care. They'd run, they don't care what it is. If you have an imbalance, you know, not a big deal. But these new ones that you're putting in that cost $200,000, that's something you want to protect. So not only now we have to look at replacing the generator that's there with a new one, but we may have to look at upgrading the station. And that wasn't something that was on our radar for another couple of years. We were gonna wait till Cobb Street was done and then phase in Great Woods. So
what station is that?
the Great Woods Station,
Great Woods.
South Main Street.
Yep.
Mansfield. So, you know, the question now to the board is, we have phase 3 coming in at Cobb Street. We asked for additional monies for the pumps and motors because they're 30-something years old. Needs to be addressed. I don't feel comfortable taking that money and asking for it to be swapped to this, because it's just kicking that down the road. And everybody knows what's gonna happen if we do that. So I would like approval from the board to get together with Steve, come up with a proposal for a generator replacement and an assessment of the existing building, the VFDs, the incoming wiring, and what it would be to put in phase monitoring and surge protection. You know, it may be overkill, but you know,
Do any of our stations have that?
some of the newer wells have that. The water treatment facility has it,
Yeah.
because they're all new.
Right.
You know, it's
Maybe
something-
other stuff probably does.
Right, so if I went for an emergency procurement to replace the generator, it's only gonna cover the generator and its visible lead connections to the existing components that are there. So I'd still have to present an article to do the upgrades to the building and any other electrical there. To me, it just makes sense to have one contractor do it all, have all the parts that are commingled. You know, if we need a new VFD, if the one that's there right now that's not that old isn't compatible or isn't recommended for us, what we have, you know, it just makes sense to do it all at once. So that's gonna be expediting the project. You know, this would be phase 1 of the Great Woods project, a couple years ahead of schedule, but I would say, and Steve can probably come back with a ballpark number on this, I think the generator is gonna be close to 200,000. It's a 175 kW generator.
Yeah.
I know, you know, phase monitoring is not inexpensive. And then same thing with surge protection, whether it's all combined into one. So you're quickly
I think
throwing
that
some
makes
big
sense.
numbers
To me. That
together.
won't be much into one.
Do we need a vote on that? Cause I think this is a no-brainer.
I think it's a no-brainer. I don't know if we need a vote on it, but definitely moving forward, we
I
are gonna
think the
have to
vote-
fund the design.
I think we should authorize that to happen, get the proposal, and then we vote on that.
Okay,
So we
That's a
need
good
to
idea,
figure
yeah.
out how to fund the design work. So this is gonna take some legwork between Steve and, you know, our engineers. As we did with Cobb Street, it was done in multi-phase. We had a full design that was done, then we went to project bidding and stuff like that, so.
I'm gonna make sure we pay Steve now this time.
Steve needs his money. I think, Steve and I had talked earlier, not to put words in his mouth, I think they could possibly start it working under the general services contract. That you guys will probably hear later on, this evening, because it's going into FY 26.
Okay.
But it fully can't be funded out of that.
Right,
So-
no, we know.
We're talking about putting something in the fall town meeting, to possibly fund that, possibly put monies back in general services and just get going
I
on.
think there's any question, I can speak for these guys, I think that's something that's gotta.
I assumed that was gonna be what we're hearing, but I had to present it.
Yeah.
It's just the process.
So other than the generator, you're saying they're gonna fix the generator and model, upgrade everything since it's 34 years old.
I would at least want an assessment on the existing conditions of the
Yeah.
electrical services that are
It might be
there.
fine, it might be adequate.
Right.
But it's always good to look at it now,
Find
I
out
mean,
now.
it's a good
Makes
call.
sense to me.
It's way above something that I can do. It doesn't make sense to bring a separate electrician in to do that. If we're gonna have a project, let's design it and have everything
Right.
work together.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Alright.
Sure. Very good. All right, Steve, we'll have to get together and work up some numbers on what we can do to start that, and then we can get articles together for the fall meeting.
You wanna start with an assessment?
Yeah, I think,
Before
an
we do the
assessment.
full-blown
electrical.
engineering agreement, let's just get an assessment and a quick, so we can do that under the general services
Okay,
and get an assessment done.
it's just a good place to start, I think.
Alright, moving on to Weston and Sampson, who wants to go first?
Before you change that, I
Oh,
got
sure.
one question.
Mhm.
Are we replacing John?
We're working on that. We have an interested party, internal party. There is quite a few questions that need to be cleared, with the town manager before that can take place. And, he's been difficult to get a hold of in his last few weeks. He's been, having a lot of traffic in the office, so.
We're gonna vote on this, a temporary acting manager?
I haven't
About
heard either way.
doing
Is it on? Okay, I
it?
haven't.
Well, I saw it advertised for Thursday night.
Okay.
I don't know, I can take that out if you want. I don't know if you know. Brian Clark,
I
that ring
do.
a bell?
Does not ring a
Brian
bell.
Clark,
Brian Clark? No?
he's a police chief.
Maybe that's.
Brian Clark's the police chief, right?
Right,
Well, let me,
Is that the same one?
let me check. It'll take me one
Might be
minute.
a different Brian.
common name.
It'll take me 1 minute to figure it out if I can figure out where it is. Yeah. Here we go.
This sucks. Just a little heads up,
Mhm.
you call me at any time. I mean, I got all their emergency numbers, so.
I mean, it may not have eliminated problems. It's just such a
You
coincidence.
could have, yeah,
We could have manned the station.
Yep.
That was my biggest concern, is that, had we had known. Maybe it could have been avoided, maybe not, Maybe it's just the way it
Maybe it was right, yeah.
For some reason, I can't open.
and the worst.
All right, well,
I can't open the agenda.
Discussion and or vote to hire Chief Brian Clark as acting town manager.
Oh, wow.
he's got my vote,
We know him?
yes. he's a
Then we need a
good-
police chief.
Yeah, I sat next to him during the town meeting,
Yeah, very good. to them.
I gave him some M&Ms, he was happy.
No problem.
You've probably known him forever, right?
I have.
And is that something an acting town administrator would work on as personnel?
No, I don't see why not. It's
Okay.
required,
Okay.
to go through the motions.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Peterson, you are on, literally.
Excellent.
How classy.
We're in trouble.
We covered Elm Street. I think we pretty much covered everything.
That's what I like to hear. Yes.
Anyway, they haven't heard from Ryan yet.
Yeah, right.
Ryan, did I
all right.
miss anything?
I was gonna say you could just update them on the Norton Public Schools construction that's gonna hopefully start in late July. Talk about that. It's just a quick update on it. We're looking to start construction with Aqualine at the end of July. Slightly modified work plan. They're going to reroute the force mains over there, connect them each into their individual service, and then provide the gravity sewer infrastructure, but they're not going to do any of the pump station modifications. They're going to forego that until they have more funds for it. So they'll have the option to plug in via gravity, but there'll be some more legwork and some more work to do to try to figure out how to do it.
Is this the middle school you're talking about?
The high school and the Yale school.
In the Yale school, okay.
Yep.
What's going on with the Valentine property and that's, have we heard anything from them at all lately, or?
They are still interested in pursuing.
Yeah, I know they are, but I haven't heard anything, that's why I wasn't
It's
sure.
been a little while. I remember seeing an email come through. I believe John might have been on that, so it's
Okay.
been just a little while about it. Yeah, they were hoping that there was a possibility of moving that grant money over to West Main Street.
The Elm Street grant money?
Yeah, we did have a discussion with the representative from EPA, and it's a completely different scope, so it would be a full new submittal. It
Oh,
doesn't, it
so
doesn't work.
that's not feasible.
No, it's not something that works, unfortunately, even though it definitely would have been a great use for it.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. All right, Ryan, thank you.
No problem.
You good, Steve?
Yeah, I think we're good.
That was fancy how he did that.
Right.
All right, Miss Tara. Thanks, Steve.
You bet.
So while they're still on, I might as well chat a little bit through the, Brian sent an email to Frank today with the standard FY 26 water and also the wastewater general services agreements. We have those for you guys to look at today. For the email, there is a slight change. What we did, instead of having we were doing basically a rate chart with multiple different staff members and kind of different rates for them. We're just gonna go with a one flat rate for everybody, just mark them off the same. So make it a little bit simpler, and straightforward, but so on the average, it comes out pretty much the same, but it's just a little bit better for our accounting system and then also just for you guys moving forward too.
Okay.
Cuts down a whole page of these. So I have the general engineering and consulting services related to wastewater issues and assignments for FY 2026 for $50,000.
So that's, well, that's the same as last year, the same as.
And
Okay.
everything else other than the actual payment terms are exactly the same, 50,000 every year. There's breakdown for, the standard attendance of meetings, also assistance as needed developer reviews, which we've kind of switched over to just invoicing developers directly, working directly with them. And then also, any kind of as needed services, so like you guys were just talking about the assessment for, Braidwood's pump station or something.
Okay, awesome.
And then random stuff on the water side that we just come up with.
Yeah,
Okay.
just random.
Weekly,
So this is budget that I have, you have a budget for this, right?
yes.
Who's budget?
So we can go ahead and move this in the ball then.
I think so.
All right, I go ahead and make a motion to approve the agreement of engineering services between the town of Norton and Weston Sampson for general engineering and consulting services related to wastewater issues and assignments for fiscal year 2026 in the amount of $50,000.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great.
Sign in this
You
here.
have to sign this one, right?
And that one is loud, yeah.
Okay, last
And then-
page.
Just the last page.
I
that's
see
it.
everything.
All right.
So Steve makes it difficult. Okay.
Is this the one to sign or?
I actually have another, well, there's 3 copies there,
Oh, there's 3 copies in this, okay.
and then there's one, exactly the
Okay.
same thing.
Well, that's fine, it's good.
Yeah.
We're too confused.
Yeah, I'll talk one this.
I agree.
That's the last
When you
page.
get into that, Steve, the chart that shows the recommended water main replacements, we did move a few out of the actual boxes based on importance. That does not have the ones marked off that are completed, but I can update them for you.
I think I asked you that at one point, about that.
Mhm.
Someone- I do have the map of the water system on my wall in my office and the sewer system. How about that? I know you'd be impressed. Don't ask me why.
That's, I was just about to.
I needed something to cover my walls. How about that?
Fair enough.
Cheaper than paint.
Should be.
And then, got a pretty much identical contract for $50,000 for the general engineering.
I will go ahead then and make a motion to approve the agreement for engineering services between Norton and Weston and Sampson for general engineering and consulting services related to municipal drinking water issues and assignments for fiscal year 2026 in the amount of $50,000.
I second.
Uh,
Good out.
what was I gonna say?
They're all over it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Jeez. Wow, what a brain cramp that was. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Jeez. Rick Warden? Yep. Jeez. Okay. All right.
Said water updates across the board. Feel like I say this a lot, but well 4, we actually started to mobilize. Frank Sullivan went back out there. He actually had an issue with his frame. I don't know if you've heard that update. That was just recently. I just got that text message today. So their goal, they're still going to mobilize some materials and equipment, but they're off next week for the holiday, and they're going to try to get back here on the 7th, and hopefully the crane's ready to go for that. But screens ready to be installed when they're ready to install. And then we kind of briefly chatted a little bit about this with Derek over the treatment plant, but similar to what we did over at when we did 5 and 6, we do need to do a 48-hour pumping test. So we're going to coordinate that in advance. Once we get that screen in, then we're ready to actually run that test. The goal is to try to get that done this summer. If we have something like this going on, I don't know if we're going to be able to. He said, well, I'm not going to want to do that, but we run the wells a little bit more continuously 24/7 to make it so there's not as much. We want to hold the office, but we don't make any adjustments there. So Kevin McKinnon with the groundwater hydrogeo group will be coordinating directly with Derek on that.
And would you say that's a 24-hour test?
Yeah.
48.
And so 4, 5, and 6 are all right in that. 2 are on one side of the river,
Right.
one's on the other, so they're all in that basin. So we just want to make sure we got.
So that won't affect us in the middle of the summer?
It shouldn't, but again, we want to make sure tanks are topped off. We want to predict, like, if there's not something crazy, like this is just ridiculous. So I don't want to do anything. Everything is stressful.
Well, it's gonna rain this weekend anyways. Still,
Yeah,
Has to, it's
Saturday.
Saturday.
But, this kind of,
Everything will be okay.
All right, yeah, go back to normal.
but it's not just the water on this thing. So everything's stressed when it's hot out there. So,
Yep.
Well,
Equipment,
it's gonna be
people.
it's gonna be 70 degrees, you're gonna have to turn the heat on.
yeah. Oh, I
Mm.
know. So that's moving. I'll keep you guys posted. I think our next meeting, hopefully have an update by then, so that'll be good. As far as Cottage Street, so that moved forward. We've actually started to get some questions coming in from the contractor. We'll be, hoping to roll with some shop drawings. If there's any kind of snags, I'll keep you posted, but for the most part over the next several months, we'll just be reviewing shop drawings and waiting for an official schedule from them when they anticipate coming back out. But the goal would be to take that tank fully offline, the large 2 million gallon tank. That's not going to be until winter. So late fall into winter. And the goal is to have that up and running well in advance of May of 2026. But the hope is to get it on sooner than later. So they've been well aware of this project. We're hoping for a favorable schedule. Knock on wood, so no major issues, but that'll be a nice tank cleaning too. Get in there, check it all out, see if there's any other issues we can get in there. And move from there. We're also going to have them when they're on site, do a little bit of an assessment at the 3 million gallon tank. like to get that on the books as something that you can take a look at of how can we optimize that.
What's the 3 million gallon tank? Which one's that one?
For.
Mansfield Ave.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it's not
okay.
really, I mean,
Yep.
it was constructed by.
Kodak or whatever.
The history of the whole thing, but more or less, you've got a lot of dead water, and then we wanna see if we can maybe do a couple different options, what might be the cheapest route, do we fill the tank in to where the pumps can actually activate and utilize all that water?
Yeah, we're not doing any kind of aeration or anything in that tank, are we?
I wouldn't recommend any aeration over there for now. The main culprit in the area of what we did for modeling wise and what we've been seeing
Cottage.
with point residual is the center of town and moving out. So
Okay.
at Cottage Street, that's the biggest water, kind of, fills Cottage Street elevated, and then further down, you've got your other elevated. So getting that online, and then that'll impact the rest of the whole, I would say, western quadrant, if you will, or northwestern quadrant of the town. So, and then the 3 million gallon tanks, I mean, there is what we're gonna do in our analysis, the alternatives analysis, which I'll talk about in a little bit. The goal is to just take a full look again. We wanna finish up this water storage study that we started, talk to you a little bit about those options, and really discuss the amount of volume you have on site and versus what your actual needs are. And link that with what we're also talking about for upgrading your sources and or potentially, teaming with neighbors and purchasing water. So, we're looking at this holistically. There's some amendments, a lot of stuff, good things came out of the ACO. I know ACOs are a little scary, but, so there's some long range planning that we're proposing to do, to be in compliance with the ACO over the next 2 years. So, but overall, yeah, right now, just the short answer, I think you need to do something different at 3 million gallon tank, but that's until we fix the issue of why you can't pump all 3 million gallons. There's no point in putting a mixer in there. It's also not really a high risk area. Your THMs are not that zone.
Was there something that the pump is just too high in the tank and it can't?
Yeah, there's like,
Yes.
is it 6 feet or 8 feet of, dead water?
Okay, yeah.
So they're able to kind of manipulate it to kind of get a little bit of an action where they can kind of create a
It's
little.
not, as easy as just putting the pipe on the inlet of the pump that goes down 6 feet.
So there's, I don't know the full layout up there, but I will tell you that it needs to be engineered, and we haven't gotten into that fully, but there's a lot of options that it's a lot of storage.
Yeah.
And you're not using it anyway, so the goal would be to potentially modify that tank and take it in that tank and see. It's a relatively new tank compared to your other one, but, filled with gravel. It's kind of your, TPC area? Is that
Yeah,
answer that?
prior to TPC, you have, the building that's out back. It used to be Polaroid, now it's Auto Parts International. Basically across from McDonald's, there's a wide driveway out back and you can take it around to our facility.
So there's a little bit of a snafu maybe on a elevation data maybe or something. So,
Yeah, something was off. That went online in 2000. And if I believe correctly, it was right around when I had started. It had already been out of warranty before it even went online. There was some issues with, one of the pumps being installed backwards. It seized. Myself and another operator, we had, the challenge of replacing that just to get it functional.
Frank.
There's definitely some upgrades that are required down there, some VFDs, drives, things like that. It is operational as needed for emergency basis. Generator needs some work down there, so it's a site that definitely it can work if necessary. It's just not something we have in full automatic. It's definitely a hand operated facility right now. So yeah, as Tara was saying, the pumps will actually cavitate when they shut off if the water level is below the building level. It was, design flaw. Not really sure exactly what happened, but it's unfortunate to have such a nice facility in the wrong spot of town.
needs a little bit of work, a little bit low priority, but at some point, we just wanna, when we have the experts out there with concrete tanks and options, we'll see if we can get them in there and, we'll see, if we wanna finish up 2 million gallons. That was part of the reason why we asked for a little bit more money. We might be able to do a change order, get them to go in there and do an inspection as well of the 3 million, just see where we're at. So we wanna find out how much 2 million is gonna cost. But there's a decent amount of work that could be done over the 3 million.
So that's like a preload of the concrete tank? Freeland or whatever?
I
Don't even know.
might have been back then,
I'm not good, okay.
or DM Tanks now, but
You know,
2020 or
yeah.
2000 would have been.
Yeah, 99 or 2000, it was built, I think it was 99.
So they have records of the information, but, again, they weren't in charge of the actual pump station side. Kind of got a little off that bit, but yeah, so we still need to kind of set up a meeting to talk to you guys about the overall, storage facility study that we've done. We have a preliminary analysis of that. I'd like to kind of set up a, executive session, kind of talk through alternatives with that, because there are some implications with some other things, as far as, costs and, links a little bit with PFAS a little bit too, so we can set that up. The original plan was to do that several months ago. There's been a lot of, this year has not been great, right, so far, so we're looking forward to FY 26 and a fresh start. So when you're ready for that, we can get that moving again, but we're on pause, focused a little bit more on the ACO and the current, but whenever you guys are ready.
When you say us guys, you're talking us guys. That's Frank.
We're talking a little bit more about Frank.
Okay.
So,
What do I need to?
I missed a couple months.
Yeah, so the start of the year, we were gonna have one, and then Frank was out.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
Sean's out now.
Talk about that.
We got
That's me.
some- It's mostly just, we wanna review with Frank and Derek and talk through it and just get to the next level, so.
Alright.
Before we present to you guys, basically, because we made some updates based on an initial review from last year and got some revised costs for 2025, and now we're kind of into 2026. We'll keep you posted, but, that'll be something it's a little back burner, we're not going anywhere. We still have a contract. We just paused that contract about 5 months ago. So as far as the FY 26 contract, just sign that. We talked a little bit about Southwester Street. I don't think we need to get into that too much, but A3, so let's hope for better results as we go on, but we did eliminate some bypass on that roadway. That will save you guys about $200,000 or so. They're gonna hopefully be good about this and not, the water main is tough to find, but hopefully they don't find it existing, but, so we'll keep y'all posted on that, but the whole goal with that is to, we got detours set up, so to pretty much bypass everybody across that, local, obviously residents can get to their homes, but we're trying to reroute everything else so they can really have enough room out there to do the job that they can without the bypass, so. So that might meander a little bit through, but, the goal is to try to wrap that up. We started, after school let out to try to minimize any impact to students and stuff like that. And if we need to, we'll reach back out to the school systems, once and daycares and whatnot, school buses, but mostly, the goal is to try to get the water main work done by the end of the summer before school starts back up.
Awesome.
And then permanent trenching, which I did kind of send a separate email because Chief Clark emailed me separately and then emailed you. But the goal is to try to do permanent trench paving sometime in the fall after everything's settled for a little bit, and then come back next year with final curb to curb for both East Hodges and South Worcester underneath the highway department's budget. So, I should say their annual contract and then through the water department's budget.
Great.
And then I have a little bit of detail to talk through. Steve brought up some good questions that I wanted to kind of chat through. We've been modifying this amendment for about a month and a half, but I think we've got it down now, what we need to include here. So this is an amendment to the water quality and PFAS treatment alternatives analysis. We really wanted to put in a little bit more of the next year and a half of what we need to do to kind of address all the ACO concerns that were brought up. So we have the manganese over well one. Fundamentally, the goal here is to apply for a grant for that, put up a temporary treatment system over for manganese, and then move forward still with what the original scope was to analyze well 1 and 2, talk about maybe a well field between those two, discussions on maybe replacement of well 1, replacement of well 2, just give you an options analysis of that. We've added in I'm going to say Devers just because I'm on Raphael Devers trade, but it could be the Dieters well, I'm not sure, but the 2 wells in Taunton, Mass DP had brought up that there's potential that they're not being currently utilized. Maybe there's a way to facilitate some water across the towns and kind of discuss that.
Those in Taunton.
They're in Taunton, but they're in, yeah, so they're not too far away, but that would require some pumping and longer water mains, but we want to take a look at that. But they also haven't been, I don't think, based on the information that Mass DEP provided us and what we're basing this on, we don't believe that there's any recent water quality testing as far as PFAS goes. So, we've put in this scope to have our team do exactly what we did with well 2. With a temporary pump in there, we would need to obviously work with Tom before this happens. So there's some initial coordination to just talk through this. But then, you know, get a temporary pump in there if there's not already a pump in there, and then do some water quality analysis and just figure out exactly what that is. Make sure what you guys need for treatment over 1 and 2 matches in the same sense with that. It's an alternatives analysis. We want to put a kind of all the cards on the table, give you kind of a rough idea of what the future could be. So that's one of the options that we added in. You know, another option was discussion that was also brought up during the ACO by Mass DEP, potentially talking to Easton. They have a new PFAS treatment plan. What do we do? Maybe bringing well 3 over there for treatment. These are very high level conceptual quick hits and thoughts at the ACO meeting. But we'll take a look at that, coordinate a little bit with Easton, see what their thoughts are on that. Give you guys an idea of what that looks like. And then, you know, another option was, we've talked a little bit about this in the past, but also purchasing water at Mansfield, Attleboro, potentially also the desal plant. So there's a couple options there that we want to just put all the cards on the table. Initially, this was looking at more of what do you want to do to your existing infrastructure, and you know there are other options out there. I think it's a good opportunity to take a look at, you know, what's the potential current cost, what's the future cost, net value, and take a look at, you know, your long-term, you know, goals and having more of an option instead of having well 1 with manganese and well 3 with PFAS as emergency solution, which maybe isn't also, you know, something that you kind of consider too but DEP would prefer to kind of remove the manganese secondary contaminant off of the list and remove PFAS too. So lumping it all together a little bit. I think, Steve, I've covered most of your ideas there. You want to talk through. We are going to also kind of address several other items. We did not include this in here because it's a little bit higher price tag, and I don't. At this point, I'm hoping that you have enough funding to do this at least. But we do need to take a look at your UDF again.
The what?
Unidirectional flushing program.
Okay.
Taking a look at, you know, and maybe that's kick that down a little bit, but we had originally designed it around pumping directly from the treatment plant and out. And taking a look at, you know, where your larger users are, updating the model, getting everything in there. I think that, you know, based on some flushing experience in the past, you guys know your system. We want to make sure what the model shows valving wise is accurate. I know that back in the day that the town had basically GPSed a lot of valves and they're not very accurate. So we've had best fit a little bit, and maybe it's at this point we want to talk a little bit through getting a little bit better accuracy there. Asset management plan and grants, there's a bunch of things that DEP wanted you guys to do and put applications for. So that's pretty much all covered in this. But the main goal is to try to get you guys funding for the manganese treatment. And then I think it's a little premature. The PEF's project evaluation forms for SRF funding are due in about 4 weeks. We're not getting through this study for long-term PFAS treatment options by then. But I also, if there's other options where instead of upgrading PFAS and you decide to purchase water, I think that we will push this PEF application off until next year. So your goal by the end of 2026 is to have a game plan. Where are you going to go? Having this alternatives analysis done, we've got some water quality testing we're going to do throughout your system, as well as the treatment plan. Already included was kind of taking a look at the T2C issues at the treatment plan. We've added in a little bit extra time to kind of address a little bit more of what we've talked about through with Derek over the plant. So I think at this point it's extremely comprehensive and it can workflow as needed as we start to do a little bit more investigation. We can spend a little bit more time doing a little bit maybe pre-design if we can eliminate some of these analyses a little bit kind of off the front end.
So you got this contract with them today? Right?
It was emailed to you guys, yeah, today.
So I went through it and there was a question. More or less.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that we need just to confirm, I mean, as we always do, we don't move forward with contracts unless it's signed off by town hall. Make sure that there was some reallocation of funding, that went towards water quality / PFAS and wells. So that's what we're hoping to use to cover this larger amendment, but, it's a good step in the right direction to kind of address the concerns of the ACO. So it's an amendment, and I think probably the best thing to look at, and this is if you guys are ready to approve this, but we had the original contract amount was for, I was right on the flip side here, was for 159,700. We're adding 249,200 for a total of a little over 400,000. So, bold in here. And then, as I said, so, like, if there's anything that we come across as we go through this, that over the next 6 months, Taunton says they don't want to do anything with the wells, we can repurpose that money towards, pre-design, preliminary designs if you need to, but this is more of just a baseline.
So the last 2 pages were the amendment, right? The rest of.
Actually, we cut pretty much, so anything in bold, and make it a little bit easier, what we did was we took the Article 2 scope of services and deleted it in whole, and then added in the entire new and revised. So with a little bit bold text, you can tell what we did differently.
So I reviewed on the first 6 pages, which was the.
Well, there's only 6 pages, so.
Right, my copy came up with 18 pages when you sent it to me. I think it was repeated 3 times.
Oh, maybe I, gotcha.
I just like, in case you want to know,
So when I print to the printer and then I print it to PDF, it probably scattered like 3, yeah.
I just like,
All right, so I will make
Or
a
the, like, other,
motion to approve amendment number 1 to the agreement for engineering service between Norton and Weston and Sampson for water quality and PFAS treatment alternatives analysis in the amount of $249,200 to bring the updated contract value to $408,900.
I will second, but I have a question.
Okay.
So on the funding of that 200 and whatever, the money isn't, we have money somewhere?
There was monies that were transferred from leftover accounts previously for the original amount. I had discussions with John about additional fundings that was in there, and we'll have to verify exactly what's left because additional money has been moved since this whole thing has started. So,
Right.
funding will need to be found for this. Obviously, it's a requirement with the ACO. So if it's not, even if it requires a town meeting vote.
So is this money that, was from, budget, from our enterprise fund?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Either left over from previous articles, that came in under budget and transferred. Typically, we go through, we clean up the books every so often. And, we'll fund it
So-
that way.
I know we're gonna vote on this and stuff, but you really should read this because it's really incredible what they're gonna do. I mean, I had a number of questions, about all the different potential sources of water.
This was emailed to us?
Yeah,
I did, yeah, but
like
like-
this day.
today.
Oh, okay, I
4
was,
o'clock, maybe?
anything after 1 o'clock, I probably missed it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just happened to catch it and I printed and I read it before.
Yeah, we've been working with Frank on, like I said, for about 6 weeks, kind of talking through. And well, it kind of stems back to the ACO when we were talking about agreeing to certain of those terms. And this basically helps you get to the point where you will have answers for that ACO by December of next year.
As I said earlier, and I don't know if I said it during the meeting, Bob Kimball mentioned to me, maybe a town meeting, I don't remember when, that they want us to come before the selectmen meeting to talk about the desalinization plant.
So they want a joint meeting?
No, I'm just saying, and of course, when he said it, I didn't know anything about it, so I was a little embarrassed, I don't even know, I mean, I know about the desalinization plant because how long have you been around? Since 2000?
It's defunct
It's
now.
been around for quite some time.
I remember
It's defunct now, isn't it? Is it open still?
So I
I
know,
don't think it's open anymore.
but I didn't know that it was on our
You
plate
got
potentially.
for additional funding.
So it'd be,
Quick
be
analysis.
an interesting meeting to invite us to the meeting to talk about it, since,
Mhm.
I don't know what you guys know about.
Yeah,
Maybe you know
we talked about it a long time ago when Bernie was here. When I first started, there was quite a bit of talk about it. Running lines up Hodges Street, is it?
There was discussion of Hodges Street. Ultimately, it was determined to go South Washington
South
Street,
Washington.
go into the industrial park and actually exit onto 495 to go down, I believe there was one exit to Route 138.
Yeah.
There were monies that were appropriated for it, there was water mains that were installed at our expense. And all of it came to a grinding halt when Mass DOT refused the approval for us to actually put the water main, or a contract to have the water main put in on 495. So it's unfortunate that it turned out that way after such an investment was made.
So the way it sounded to me was we could turn a valve and have the water.
Yeah,
That's
no.
not how I read it.
No.
I was
Lot
like,
of- lot of-
maybe they didn't mean to say it that way, it just, that's how I interpret it. Not quite that simple like that.
So-
Yeah, and there's discussion on at that point, I'm pretty sure where that plan is looking, but interbasin transfers,
Mhm.
there's a lot.
That's a nightmare in itself.
Yes, it is.
Can't be, it's not impossible, but.
No, it's just a nightmare. Well, to finish off the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Are there 3 copies of these?
There are, these are the other cases. See, I'm gonna do these. The second time I've done that, about 5 years, so I've been very confident. about these events. It was a little hot now.
There are 3 copies?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so one of the main things that's been discussed here, and it's been with other boards as well, is
Thanks, Jim.
what'll happen if we determine that the best option is to modify what we currently have as far as the $11 million iron manganese removal facility. We would still require a connection to an external community to supply us with water while those upgrades are being done, if it can even be performed at the existing location based on the limitations that were there. So that's where some of this other discussions come in about purchasing water from surrounding communities, whether it be as a full-time solution to removing wells 1 and 3, which are the 2 problems, or whether it just be a temporary solution while we go and address and make modifications to what we own. So.
Thank you.
All right,
And if you guys have any other water questions overall, that's pretty much it on those things.
should be good for now. Next meeting,
We got,
We have one thing.
we have one
no,
thing.
did I miss something? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we got.
Oh, the abatement, I'm sorry. Yep, we're looking right at that. So,
66 John Scott Boulevard.
oh,
Yeah, what about it?
She wants her bill abated.
That's.
no, that's 333 South Worcester Street.
Oh,
That's all right.
oh, here it is, up top, sorry.
You guys want an abatement?
It's warm in here.
That's it.
See ya. I'm rubbing off on you.
Looks like there's been estimated meter readings for this going back quite a bit.
Is she,
MES is an estimated reading.
Correct.
So she's been having estimated readings going back to 2007?
This is what she said.
Yeah, Steve actually has something on this.
is she on town sewer?
No. Did the meter get replaced, Brooke?
It just got replaced.
It just did recently,
Yeah.
so that's the zeros on the top there, the actual readings, okay.
She told me that this has been a problem since 2007.
Yeah, that's what this says going back, estimated readings going back to 2007.
There's 30 units in the complex, is that what you said?
No, I think that she was being billed for 30
She's
units.
being
of
built for
use.
30 units. She was built 30 units from 2008 to 2021.
But I don't know why we would abate anything.
I don't understand either.
I don't either.
I mean, I understand where she's coming from, but I don't understand what.
So in 22, the 30 goes to 35, then it goes to 40, then it goes to 45 and 50 and 55. That's the increases to let somebody know, hey, this is an issue. You need to do
Historically,
something about it.
yeah, so if cards were left, notifications were made, you can't get a reading after a certain point in time. Historical practice is to put an elevated use on the estimated read. So that
Right.
more than likely it prompts a phone call, they've noticed some type of a change. And, usually that is how we get contact with people, who do not respond to the notices.
Do they typically wait till it gets up to 55 units before they call?
It is very uncommon. There were multiple accounts that I can recall in the early 2000s, that, we were unable to obtain readings. I was actually one of the meter readers back then. We would leave hundreds of those red notices on people's doors. And a lot of times you would go back, you find it in the trash, so there's a possibility that one or two may have been missing, but not, quarterly readings since 2007. There is, you know, we've spoken with other residents at the time who had mentioned that, they received it and weren't concerned, with us getting in to change the meter. It wasn't a priority for them. And so there's multitudes of reasons we could come up with why they weren't able to respond to us or did not respond. Ultimately, at some point, this person realized that their bill was very high and did reach out. That's how the meter ended up getting replaced. And I believe she was just reaching out to see if there's anything that can be done for an abatement of the bill, now realizing it's been estimated for, a very long time.
So, I'll ask the rhetorical question, is there anything we can do for her that should be done?
There's nothing that I can see that's a requirement of the board. The last two billing cycles, I believe, were zero use. Something we definitely have to keep an eye on, because that seems extremely low. For a household not to have a minimum use, she'd still get the minimum charge because 0 to 4.
Yeah,
minimum
that
bill.
seems kind of weird,
Mhm.
unless there's just nobody living there.
They just,
Which is very
but they just replaced the.
So the first, there's 2 zeros, right?
Yes,
So
there
the
are.
first 0 would have been the new meter going in, and then. the-
Okay, so it's like an initial
So there's
read,
no consumption.
but it basically means in 3 months, the meter hasn't moved.
Correct.
So the new meter hasn't moved.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's almost stranger than going that long with estimated readings,
So, the fact that there's a second 0, what does that mean? What do we do
It
then?
just indicates that the meter hasn't moved enough digits to generate a reading. It's very, very possible that they could be conserving water and not using that much in a 3-month period of time, although it is uncommon.
So I guess we make a motion for no action?
I think so. I don't see any legitimate, I mean,
That's the
you know,
motion. Okay,
So is this meter working, do we know?
the new one is, well, actually, that's a good question. If it's reading 0, still maybe, is it possible a new meter put in doesn't work? Did it happen?
Anything is possible.
probably not true though.
No,
It's
more
highly
more likely
unlikely,
not,
but
yeah.
it's
Yeah, I
possible.
don't see how that
Right.
is possible.
But that's one thing we gotta make sure that's the case, because
Well,
we can't even make, if we were gonna make any determination, you can't make one if we know this is accurate or not.
what is our rate, water rate?
Brooke, do you know the current number? For the minimum?
Could you just let me know tomorrow? Somebody else,
Yeah.
You have any idea?
I don't know what your minimum bill is.
No, forget about that, I just want to know what rate.
You have it increasing. Well, right?
It's an incremental block.
So $0,
$1, $2,
4,
nothing
4
else.
to 12 units, it's based on units.
Yeah, it's 0 to 4 and increases from there.
When you don't have to go out of your way, you trip upon it and send it to me, right?
It's not as simple as it should be.
I mean, we can't.
It's an
monitor this.
incremental increase so that it prompts water conservation. As you get to the higher usage, you pay a little bit more for the same amount of water.
Did we,
Money's always a good incentive to conserve water.
Yes.
So 0 to 4 is $67.63. 5 to 20 is an additional $5.44, and then anything above 20 is an additional $8.47, and then there's a capital charge on top of that, which is 25% of the water charge.
What's the first increment, 0 to 4?
67.63, and the minimum capital is 1691. So those two added together would be the minimum water bill.
did we previously monitor someone's bill? I mean, we really can't do anything, we can't really do anything over a certain amount of time anyways. So didn't we monitor someone over a year, four billing cycles for someone once? Maybe I'm just thinking about, and I don't know if we really wanna delve into something like that, because I think that would be a burden that Brooke would be killing us.
I remember a similar discussion, but I don't remember what the final outcome was. Is that
Yeah, I
just an
don't
option
recall
that was
it,
discussed?
there's just this.
Mhm.
I thought at one time we did, but I can't recall.
It might be worth it to just make a note to look at this again in the next bill. If it's another zero,
Mhm.
then that might think something's suspect with the meter maybe, or.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine they would go 6 months and not click that meter over one unit, you know?
Even overnight, it's gonna move. With showers and whatever they do, and normal daily duties.
Right.
You know, it's gonna move. Take a picture of it at night. Or whatever, or anytime, and just see if it moves. I don't know, I don't know. But I don't think there's really much we can really,
I don't think there is. I
the
mean,
board can really do.
like I said, other than just noting it to see if it's another zero
I
next,
wish we could.
Right.
you know?
Yeah, based on the regulations, it would be the abatement for a previous, was it from the previous reading, they had to respond to us in 30 days to request a review and an abatement. That's only on the last billing cycle. It obviously isn't.
But even if they did get in the 30 days, I don't see something here where we can.
Mhm.
You know, again, it would open up the possibility of anyone else knowing about this. Oh, hey, well, they're just waiving people's bills because they think it's too high, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm, you know. Talk like I don't care about it or anything, but. Yeah, I don't think we can do anything with this.
No.
These-
Say,
Nope.
I would say
I'm
that
gonna
we-
go ahead and make a motion then to take no action on 333 South Worcester Street.
I second.
All in favor?
Before you jump ahead, there was a discussion at a previous meeting for another abatement that was put before the board. This is the one, that they were actually waiting for, the police department to try and determine if there was a squatter
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
in the
sure.
property. We have not
Sure.
heard back from them, but I knew this was meant to be brought up again at this meeting, so I just
Okay.
want to provide you guys with an update that we have not heard back
So we haven't heard
either way. So I guess we can table it
just wait
until the
until
next
we hear
meeting, or
something.
if we hear back from
Well,
them.
what do they really
Talk
do right
about Even if there was an illegal squatter in there, it doesn't really change it.
It doesn't
right?
remove the usage.
It doesn't remove the usage of the water and the responsible party.
And who's responsible? The people that own the meter are responsible.
Ultimately, the
unfortunately.
owner of the
Yeah.
property is responsible.
Let's wait until we hear back.
I would like to wait and see. It's.
I don't think we even need to vote on it.
Situation.
So should we extend it?
Yeah. Do you want to continue?
I don't wanna extend it indefinitely, but,
Yeah,
should we give it another 30 days?
And we'll put the agenda for the next meeting,
Yeah, we just-
Schedule it in there.
whatever that is.
Do we have to vote to do that or just?
I don't think it was a vote last time, I just no discussion, you gave 30 days, so I'll just extend it. to
Let's
the
let
next
ride
meeting.
one more. Scared. Cause if it did come back where they found someone else liable for it, then he can go after that other person for this cost of the water on his own.
Yeah.
Would be how we would have to do it.
Exactly. Yeah, it'd be a legal matter, a civil legal matter.
So the next meeting,
Yep.
it's supposed to be on July 15th, but I have a conflict.
For the 8th or no?
No, the 8th is when I
How could it
have
have
it.
been on July 15th? 15
that?
days and how could the
The
15th?
second Tuesday is the 8th.
So the 8th, okay, but this is the third,
This one was
This one
rescheduled
was scheduled.
due to the
okay,
conflict.
that's fine, the second, the 8th is fine.
Oh, it's good, good.
So Tuesday,
So is
July.
that too soon to have a meeting?
You'll have less bills to sign.
We used to meet twice a month, so.
No, it's okay, it's okay with me, it's on my agenda, it's fine.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that.
I mean, if it works, so you
Yeah,
want
that's
to
fine.
put it out, I mean, that's,
So that's fine.
for all
Make
of
it
those who
simple.
attend, they're used to being here on a second
That's true.
Tuesday.
That's a good
so-
point. Good Peter looking at it.
Peter, are you gonna be here?
I think he might have signed off.
No, my goodness.
Seen it
We're losing our audience, Steve. We're losing our audience
Yeah, yeah. So,
Sure, yeah, another meeting to go to.
I do have one thing that's
before we
not
close it.
anticipated.
Okay.
At a previous meeting, believe it was John that actually might have brought it up. There was some discussion about how we're having difficulties getting participation for the lead and copper homeowner samples. This time around was equally as challenging. We do have the 60. I don't have all the results yet, so it's gonna be right down to the wire for the deadline. It did require some banging on doors and, discussions with people. There was a discussion that was brought up about providing a rebate or an incentive to the homes that fit the criteria. Based on Brooks' findings, it was a discussion, but there was never an actual vote or anything on it.
I think we talked about gift cards at one time, which I didn't really think was a great idea, but a rebate I thought was a little more seamless and easier.
Right.
Not for Brooke, also, Brooke, no offense.
No, it definitely adds work, unfortunately, to Brooke. When we did something like this in the past with the meter rebate program, it did require approval from the town manager and town accountant
Okay.
because it's allocation of funds, for an unusual source.
All right.
With-
What was presented to the homeowners from us?
I don't think anything was actually
Okay.
presented. There were some numbers thrown
So
around.
we got the 60 without,
This time around, we did,
okay,
right down to the wire. The idea was that if somebody was provided with a $20 or $25 rebate, if they provided the water sample, as an incentive, maybe it would prompt future actions to continue so that we stay out of violation. I mean, it's a voluntary program.
I think if we
This
get
would
our,
be a one-time thing though, right? Not $25 every time they get a
It
sample.
won't be every time that they have the sample. So
Every
right
time they
now,
have the
we do it twice a year. When changes take place with wells or water treatment, they have the opportunity to increase the monitoring if they so require, or if we exceed the levels, which thankfully, knock on wood, we haven't had a problem with lead and copper, even the 90th percentile. But you would have to know that there is the possibility that, you may have an increased monitoring requirement come up in the future.
yeah, to 60, it doesn't go more than 60, does it?
So it's 60 twice a year,
Right, that's what,
So-
yeah. But I'm thinking if it's more likely gonna go down to 30.
probably not anytime soon with well 4 going online, the analysis going through for treatment changes to well 1, each one of those things changes and brings us back up to increased monitoring.
Which brings another question, Tara. I mean, what is the philosophy behind lead and copper sampling? I know this might even, but I mean, I know you're trying to understand DEP, but I don't understand what additional lead and copper sampling, when you, especially if you got no problems in your system. When you meet the 90th percentile and you're not changing the water. Yeah, and you're not changing, I don't get it. I just don't, and I asked Jillian this years ago.
We
and-
did increase we increased your count, some samples, because we have adjusted, we put 2 new wells on, replacement wells, even though they're right next to each other and they have very similar water quality. That checks the box that we need to increase, so there's a lot of ways that obviously, if you,
So it's an increase.
you increase the number of samples, you're at 60 and.
No, okay, I know, but why is it the quality? I don't understand why you have to increase the sampling frequency or houses.
No, it's not a matter of why numbers. Why are we doing it at all?
Right, your question is initially, what's
Why?
the deal, right?
How
Yeah.
does it affect lead and copper?
EPA.
I don't, okay,
Check it.
all right, so it's not, so,
But this is a much shorter answer, but literally it all stems from, you wanna make sure you have the data that shows that you're not impacting any customers.
Okay.
So,
all right,
and it all really, it's hot and heavy, certainly well after Flint, Michigan with a major water quality change.
I get it.
You're not doing that.
That's what happened.
I get it.
The trip.
What, Flint?
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
But you guys have been testing for, letting,
Oh, it's been
letting
forever.
copper leaching, it's always been something and it's been,
Well,
but it's
Randy
more.
was concerned about it years ago, but we had lead service.
Mhm.
And so the Boston. has
Right,
lead
and you
service.
guys have predominantly, as far as all records indicate, no lead services, maybe some goosenecks here and there, which one of the main reasons that we've got the east sides and southwestern. They're eliminating some of those, so, but yeah, it's not like you've got full lead line services and full lead services like some other communities.
No, we've been very good with our sample results.
And
The
your
only-
pH isn't low enough that you're leaching off of it.
Yes.
It's not-
So
Yeah,
can I
recommended it.
suggest that we put that, table that discussion to our next meeting,
Sure thing. Not a problem.
but make it an item we can talk about.
Okay,
And before we adjourn the meeting, do we have to sign the documents, or can we adjourn the meeting and sign the documents afterwards?
Oh, yeah, we have to sign finance, right?
You make the call.
oh, sign them now.
You wanna let,
You can go.
I think
Steve.
well, I'm gonna stick around.
You can.
Steve,
Steve and Ryan.
I can, dinner's being cooked right
You
behind us.
guys still there?
Thanks, Steve, I appreciate it. Thanks, Ryan.
All right, you guys are all set. Have a good one.
No,
Take
thank
care,
you.
guys.
Drive safe.
We're gonna sign them both?
Yeah. Please.
Oh, yeah.
So you got that in there. Along with the.
Hey, now.
Oh,
You sign it, just the first page.
Yeah, somewhere in the front and the bottom corner.
It's what I will, right?
And I did notice you guys didn't actually come in the date, put the date on these, we didn't.
Oh, the first one, yeah.
So you got the one. Oh, check that, I always check the three.
yeah, we're gonna show the same one, or we sign all different ones?
These are two different ones.
Oh, this is.
This is 225 South Worcester. This is
Okay.
one that was approved at the previous meeting. We were just waiting on the hard copy plans.
Okay.
Please, yeah, date them with the next.
Oh,
Another 225.
Oh.
well, fun tonight. Any other, action items or anything that, you wanna discuss?
I'm gonna discuss that.
Yeah, discussed it.
Disgusting.
Who's discussed it? All
All right, then, I move to adjourn.
Next second.
right, all in favor? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.